it's never going to compromise, just like the horse is not going to compromise on that, because that's how we were created. The gophers in our yard, they're not going to compromise. They were made to prune those roots and to aerate the soil. They're not compromising on their purpose. I think humans are the only ones that try and compromise.
Welcome back to the Mind Change Podcast. I'm your host, Heather McKean. Please take a moment to like, share, subscribe, download, all those wonderful things that help us to continue to create the content that you want to see. So today we are on location in Walla Walla, Washington. We've just been a part of a wonderful clinic and a little mini retreat with our guest today, Nicole Kallstrom. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yay! This is exciting. This has been such an amazing week.
Yeah, it's been huge.
Yes. So please, if you will, let us know, how did you find Mind Change? How did you even come to this?
Yeah, so I have been on a healing journey for past 3 years, and it's been an incremental, little by little, kind of like a little rabbit trail, if you will. And I think about 6 months ago, a friend of mine said, "You got to read this book." And so I was really busy with a lot of other things, but I really trusted her, thoughts about things. So I went ahead and ordered it and dove right in. And it was the piece to the puzzle that was really great timing.
What was it that you read or noticed that felt like that was that missing piece? Is there a particular part?
So it was a mind change book specifically that I went into. And I think it was really reaffirming a lot of the things that I had already kind of found and put them together. So it was almost bringing a lot of these pieces I had into a cohesive whole. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really, and then actually gave a more clear application on what to do about it. So I think I was in a place where I knew a lot of the internal things. I knew how to kind of read my emotions, read my reactions to things. And there was a weakness in what to do about it, mm-hmm. and how to truly move on. So I could recognize things, but then I was like, and that's where I'm at, And so Mind Change gave me the next step, mm-hmm. to move on and to overcome.
And so what did you do after that? So you read the book. Did you start applying things from the book, or how did you feel like you were going to move forward with the application piece?
Yes, I got the workbook. That was really helpful. I just liked everything was laid out in the book, but in the workbook, it was, it filled in the blanks. It was just easier, it was faster for me to go ahead and dive into that. And then I think the next step was scheduling sessions with Kent. Mm-hmm. It was kind of a big leap, but I had a discovery call with him. And I think he had actually mentioned hey, well, we could come on site. I was like, I have this perfect time at this clinic, because I was kind of deciding, do I want sessions? Do I want to do a retreat? Travel, kind of figuring that out. And then he had mentioned, well, we could do on site as well. And since I'd been planning this clinic, I thought that would be really cool to have you guys a part as well, because I had a lot of my other team a part. And it was that made me decide, I'm going to go ahead and get these online sessions with Kent started now, because I wanted to keep that kind of relationship for what was to come, which, mm-hmm. is now.
And you mentioned that you'd been on a healing journey.
Yes.
So what does that mean to you? What were you looking to find in that journey?
So I've been diagnosed with autoimmune Hashimoto thyroiditis, and never went the pharmaceutical way. Just even from a kid, it just never fit with me. So I switched diet and was really living through life with that, but it was a part of my identity and kind of felt like it might be a forever thing. And then I went to Olive Top Body School in Ohio with Dr. Manzo. That was a huge part of it. And in that, I started to be able to see how emotions played into things with Kim. She's at the clinic there. And then went to discovering me, It's an online course that really dives into that. And so it was kind of in that whole journey where I started to realize that I could gain healing, and that the specific thing, and actually it was through hives. I had had a third miscarriage, and my body developed. I was actually working with a client in olive top body with severe hives right around that time, and then I developed them. And I, knew about resonation and different things. And so I was working, and through working with Kim, I was able to actually get relief. But my prayer was to the Father, was like, I want whole healing. My husband was like praying, like, please relieve her of these hives. And I would say, no. I said, no, relieve me of the root causing the hives. I was really adamant about that, even though it was excruciating. I mean, it's scarring, like, just it was really tough. But I knew that there was a cause, and I wanted to heal. And I would say that's what really got me to a place where I was like, I'm going to be healed of Hashimoto's. I'm going to be healed of, having miscarriages, like all of it. I'm going to have whole healing, body, mind, soul, spirit. But again, I was still missing one of the big pieces of how that was going to come along, until, I feel like Mind Change gave me a lot of those tools.
And how are you doing with all of that stuff now?
Well, I think good. We're still in the process, and it is a process and a journey. And mind you, like, I don't remember exactly when I got the book, but I'm probably less than 6 months into, Mind Change. And well, yeah, probably only like 3 or 4 months. So this is really early, but yet I can see a lot of improvements. One thing after the sessions, we have a Jersey milk cow, A2A2, grass-fed, organic, all of the things, but my body still couldn't handle it. And then after my first session with Kent, I could have milk. So, we were actually able to enjoy the milk from our cow. And then I think after the second session, I was actually able to have gluten, and we make sure to do high quality. We grind our own einkorn, it's organic, and all this stuff. But just to be able to have wholesome things in my body and not have it reject it is so freeing. So that was huge. So I know that's a big indicator of healing, right?
Right.
I haven't been able to do that for years and years and years. And even recently, through a lot of the other healing I had been doing, I would kind of try it, and my body would say no. So I know I'm on that path. When it's completely fulfilled, I don't know. But I know it is in a sense already.
Well, that's very common, is that people come in for a particular condition or something, and they realize, oh, there's so much more to this.
Yeah.
There's, they want to have relief from a particular condition or symptoms. And that often does happen. That happens more often than not. But it also sort of opens the door to, oh, there's this before and this before and that before, and relationships. Oftentimes it's about relationships that need healing, and belief systems that we have about ourselves or the world or others. And that tends to take almost a front seat often to say, hey, I need to be worked on first. And this is the things that are supporting whatever condition we finally end up with. Right? Because it didn't just, there's things that lead up to these conditions. It isn't just one day all of a sudden, bam, and I have something. There's usually a progression to it. So there's a progression to the healing often.
Yes. And it's, thankfully, when you have the root, it's a lot faster than the progression to the not healing. So I'm grateful for that. But you do have to dive in, and you do have to give yourself that time and that grace and that understanding of, one way I'm healed, I'm going there, and the other way I've got time. We can work through this. Check all the boxes.
Yes. So there's another thing that maybe inadvertently brought you this way, which is a big dream that you have. In a more from an athlete standpoint. So could you share that?
Yes. I grew up riding horses and had a lot of success in barrel racing from a pretty young age. I think around 9 or 10 is when I really started to be at the top of all levels of competition. And I just was a little girl with a big dream and a big heart, and thought that my horses could do anything. And they would.
Mm-hmm.
And I truly believe, like looking back, that was the thing. Because we had, of course, my dad, he was a racehorse trainer. So he had a good eye for horses, and he does. So that's definitely a part of it. I was well equipped in that way. But, we were still just a family in little Walla Walla, like running barrels. And yet there's like this, little girl inside of me that was able to dream. And I lost that. And so I was kind of confronted with this idea. We were just driving with my family, and this dream that I still had of going to the NFR, which is National Finals Rodeo. It's kind of more or less the biggest stage, or at least considered the biggest stage for barrel racing. And it just kind of seemed like I had two pathways, like you go for it and don't let this dream die and actually like start moving towards it, or you let it go. And it was really scary to say I'm going to do it. But I just really broke down, was telling my husband, I need to do this. I need to not let go. Like I don't want to, be on my deathbed or something and regret this. And at that point, like I hadn't ridden in a while, like, my horses hadn't been running. I hadn't been competing much at all. I really didn't have any structure to start. But it did occur to me that there were relationships in my life that this dream would make me confront. And then I realized that that was actually how I was going to receive my healing, is through pursuing this dream. Because there would be no way that I could actually accomplish this dream without going through certain intersections, if you will, or crossing certain paths were going to happen if I was going to reach that end goal. And so that, I feel like that's like how our Father is like so gracious. When I just kind of realized that, like he presented this dream and this option, and I'd been praying for whole healing, body, mind, soul, spirit for months by that point, and I was really adamant about it. And it's like, okay, not only am I going to answer that and give you that true healing, I'm going to put this big dream, this deep desire in your heart out there as the way to like pursue it. Like, I just feel like, how amazing is that? How amazing that it's in this dream and this passion, this thing I want so badly, that I get to find my healing. What? It's like a win-win. Like, it just blows my mind.
Yeah.
So
What is the win? What is the big dream?
Well, so the big dream is to go to the NFR, qualify, but when I think of qualifying, I don't think of like going in 15th of the world, because the top 15 of the world are, qualified. I really envision being at the top, and, it's the goal to bring home the world champion title. It's big, it's lofty, it's kind of scary to like do on a public forum, but it's what it is.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm aiming for. And the journey, whatever that looks like, is the journey. But that's the aim.
Well, it sounds like you have two wins side by side.
Yes.
There's that championship, but there's also the championship of pushing through,
Yes.
confronting the relationship stuff that you need to confronting the things that aren't aligned with full healing, mind, body, spirit. And so it's like a double win.
Oh yeah. And
right?
like the wins are ginormous, It's an amazing journey.
One of the things that I love about your story in particular is you so quickly jumped onto the concepts with mind change that you started helping other people through those concepts.
Yeah. It resonated with me. It was like I kind of had a lot of these from like discovering me and different things. I had a lot of the stuff, but not the application. So after my second session with Kent, it like really clicked. I was like, oh, I get how this works. And that was what I was hoping to be able to get. Because, from the book, I could fill out the worksheet and stuff, but I wasn't confident enough to like go into a session with myself. And so working with Kent gave me that kind of like frame. And then I think it was the night of the second session, I was at a little family rodeo night, and my niece was real nervous and her horse was really showing it. And so I was like, I think I can work with this. And so I just like quickly did like a couple pattern interrupts and had her like vision things. And I mean, like, we're at the gate, everybody's like come on. And I'm like, just a second, and it totally changed. Like they walked in, the horse calmed down. She had this beautiful pattern. She came out and she grinned. And it was like the people around me saw it. They said, what did you say to her? What did you do? And I was like, I mean, it was just like a little bit of like mind change stuff, and they're like, I want to know. So it was like the change was so fast, so apparent. It took me like maybe a minute or two just to quickly kind of work with her. And then from there, it was like people just kept coming in my path. Like they would call me or, they'd say, hey, I have a horse that needs this. So I'd say, okay. And then I'd be like, I think I see this emotional connection here. This might seem a little crazy what I'm about to do with you, but if you're up for it, I'll try it, And then I'd get in my car from that and someone would be like, hey, I have this problem. And I'd talk with them. I'd be like, well, I think I can help. It's this thing called mind change. I just started, And I think in like the next month, I probably worked with maybe 20 different people and animals, just really getting a feel for it. And of course, like not just in the way I knew it.
Right.
You're right.
Yeah.
Like not practitioner status. I haven't gone through all of that journey and stuff, but the core concepts of it, I was able to grab onto. And I think that's where I know that there's truth present, is when you can really easily grab the core concepts.
Well, I love it sort of highlights one of our concepts in the book, which is you can only give what you truly congruently have.
Yeah.
And so I think oftentimes when we have something, then people start coming into our path. I know this week you mentioned when the student is ready, the teacher arrives. And I think there's also the other side of that is sometimes when a student is ready, a teacher is formed.
Yes.
And if you have the stuff congruently to give. And so, yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So something else very special about you is you've used mind change with animals. So
Yes.
Could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, I think I can't remember at which part this was. I think it was before I had sessions with Kent. Yes. So it was after I'd read the book. I was kind of processing, trying to reconcile, and like I'm a big connector. I find connection in everything. That's like my strongest trait. Very natural for me. So while I have all of these other things, I'm like taking the mind change stuff and I'm figuring out how it connects. And so one night I have a really special horse named Birdie, and she's been kind of struggling with some stuff. And one night I really felt called to go out and visit with her. It was like after 9, my family was asleep. So I went out into the pasture and hung out with her a little bit, but she wanted a little bit of space. So I just kind of sat down from her and said, like, I'll be your guard horse if you want to like lay down and sleep, because she's been struggling with that. And so I was sitting there, middle of the night, it's like quiet, just hanging out. And I'm like, well, I might as well practice my safe haven. And so I started practicing that, and I could hear her. She was about 20 feet behind me. And I could hear her just kind of go and start to respond. And I'm kind of like, And so I'm like going back into it. She was resting her foot. I mean, it was probably about 20 minutes or something that she was just behind me, really calm, really resting. And then I thought, maybe I'll take her to that trauma, because she had a trauma of losing a colt, and I wasn't her owner at that point, so I just heard about it. But I thought maybe I'll take her there and then pattern interrupt, go back to the safe haven, right? I'm just kind of like playing with things. And so I start to kind of imagine what that would be like. And then right when it got, kind of like I could feel the emotion, I was going to hop back to the pattern interrupt, or the safe haven. And before I could, I noticed she was halfway across the pasture. She was like, I want nothing to do with that. And I was like, oh my gosh, this works. I have no idea how this works, but like she sensed that and, feel. And so that was a huge part of me being like, okay, I think that's what made me like book the discovery call and different stuff, because I was like, there's definitely something here, because this isn't me and my bias. Like, she's showing me the evidence. And, I think how our nervous systems are made, and the horses, they say like the heart energy wall thing. I don't know what it is. Anyway, they say it's big. And so there's definitely something that she was able to pick up from, whether it's my nervous system or whatever. And so that's how it got started. And then after I started working with other people, I started to feel more comfortable to be able to go out. And she was avoiding me for quite a while. So I would just kind of go out and try and do, kind of mind change work, find a safe haven out in the pasture rather than ride because, I didn't want to like try and chase her down. And it was so cool to see how the horses would just gather and one by one. And as I was going through different things, different ones would have releases at different times. And then some would leave and then they might come back. And, I have 8 mares and they're all in a pasture together. So it was really neat to see the different personalities and ones that would stay a little bit off and how they would respond to just being present and kind of rolling through different pictures and memories and emotions. Yeah.
That's great. I love that. I love this particular connection because I grew up with horses as well.
Yes.
And I really credit, I would not have had the language for this. I think I've only had the language for this in the last maybe 7 to 10 years. But I really credited horses with, I would say they saved my life when I was younger because I learned very quickly that I couldn't work with my horses if I came out really like dysregulated.
Yes.
And I didn't have that language then. But growing up in some traumatic environments and stuff, I really found solace in my horses.
Yeah.
But it was funny because sometimes I would come out and I would be mad or I would be very sad, or there's a lot of different emotions
Yes.
that I would have gone through as a child. And I went to my horses. And somehow they helped very patiently communicate to me that, hey, if you're gonna, we're gonna stay over here. And I would be so frustrated. I'd be running around a pasture with a halter like,
Yes.
come here, and they would be like, and then I found that if I could figure out a way to quiet my body, and again, I didn't really inhabit my body much as a child or a young adult, even up to being a young adult, but somehow they helped me figure out how to quiet that place inside of me. And when I could quiet that place inside of me, they would come to me and they would work with me. And so I just intuitively learned that very young and wouldn't have been able to probably explain that or say anything. So I love that as we've, moved forward, I always kept that with me to some degree. And I know that you're involved in a style of horsemanship that's kind of speaking to that a little bit, right?
Yeah. And if I can just back up for 1 second before jumping into that,
Yes.
I would say I have a really good example because I knew that as well, right? So before I'd go in the pasture, I'd, just kind of let go of anything. And just even if I was having a good day, I would still just take a second before I'd step in to try and like be here. But Birdie would still run away from me. And I'm like, Birdie, come on, I'm trying, But it was through kind of like mind change and different stuff that I realized, oh my gosh, I'm still not really truly neutral. Like there's still more in here. And now I can, most of the time, go in and she comes up to me and she's happy to be around me and will follow me around, or whatever. But if I'm ever even a little bit off where I think I'm not, she will not, like, she's not going to compromise. She's very black and white. You're either good and well or you're not. And there's no in between. And I have another mare that has a similar kind of like mature, wise vibe, leader vibe as Birdie, named Dean. She had a lot of trauma, and it's so cool because if I'm ever really in a place where there's a lot of anxiety or something, Birdie will go away from me, but Dean will come to me. And sometimes when I'm regulated, Dean's like, meh, like I can get her, but she's kind of like, I don't really need to be. I'm happy. And so it's so interesting to see how each one will pick up on certain things. And I know that Dean has a soft spot for that kind of anxiety and stuff because she's really been through it. Whereas Birdie's not ready yet. She doesn't have that to give. She's still working through it herself. So mine adding to it is too much.
Yes.
And so anyway, it's just so cool because they help identify, if we know to look, they'll help identify our internal state. And that leads us to the French classical dressage that you were mentioning. And that style of riding I got introduced to with Pippa Callanan 2 years ago. Almost like to this date. I mean, we're a couple weeks off. didn't even know I was going to a French classical dressage. Had never heard of it. Didn't know it existed. I'm very barrel racer, but I had been riding dressage for a little while and felt like it had a lot of truth to it, but I needed a change. And when the student was ready, the teacher arrived, and I feel like that's what happened with finding Pippa. And I would say it's definitely the French classical dressage principles hold that truth and hold that space. But then to have Pippa, who truly holds it herself, is like huge healing happens. And I think it doesn't matter where she goes or who she's with, the people that come run into those internal things, and whether they know what to do with it or what it is or whatever, it just happens because the teaching is so pure and genuine and to the truth. It gets to the core. There's no way around it. The whole thing is built on the core element of a horse as they are as a creation and honoring that. And then she brings that not only for the horse, but for the riders. And so
yes, I got to witness that this week. She's a beautiful human and really connects with the horses.
Yes.
And horses are such great. I mean, it's one of the reasons I wanted to do this particular interview is to express the specialness of horses. They have like you mentioned before, their heart coherence is one of the largest of any animal.
Yeah.
And so it's like up to 6 feet out. They send out this healing energy, and they can feel people's energy and what's really going on inside of them from 6 feet away. It's probably even more.
Yeah.
And they're just honest.
Yes.
And I think about, they've helped me really, that understanding has helped me even with children, you know, who are so much more pure. They're a lot more like the horses. They're very honest. They're very pure.
Yeah.
The horses generally won't even learn how to be one way and feel another.
Yeah.
They just really won't do it because they're completely shut down for various reasons. And I love that. I actually really love that.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've noticed that children are very similar to that as well.
Yes.
They will hold that, whether we understand it or not, whether it makes us uncomfortable or not, they really call us higher.
Yeah.
So I feel like actually work with horses and what I've known has helped me in my parenting and then just in relationships as a whole.
Yeah.
Because if I can regulate myself, and I understand, just like you mentioned, the difference between Dean and Birdie, your horses, that people are going to have their own responses. So human beings are that way too, to some degree. Our heart coherence is quite a bit smaller, but still we have it. And so we can feel sometimes when somebody's going through something, or when something feels a little, possibly what we might perceive to be dangerous to our own systems. And when we understand that I am only responsible for my system, and that we get messages, but they are perceptions for us too. And it helps when I realize I'm this sort of, you know, sovereign being within myself. It helps me hold that space for even other humans. It's easier with horses, but it translates into other human beings as well.
Yes.
And you understand, like, you must have a very good reason. Just like Birdie's been through a lot of trauma, and she handles it one way. Dean's been through a lot of trauma. She handles it another way completely.
Yeah.
And that humans are the same way.
Yes.
And so it helps us to give space to those people when they're going through their thing and their reactions. But through mind change, we can be a lot more regulated within ourselves. So I feel like that helps me have a little bit of a cleaner perception sometimes about what I might be receiving. The ability to say, oh, that's mine. That's 100% mine. Or, hey, the reaction is mine, but that there is something there, and that's theirs, and I don't have to judge it, don't have to label it. That's just, I can give them space if I feel like that needs to be, or sometimes I can engage to some degree, and then if there's then I don't take that personally. I'm like, oh, good, I'm going to honor that for you. So have you found that it translates to people as well?
Yeah, I think it's a newer discovery. Like, I'm just starting to really be able to see it. I had an experience at the clinic where I could see it. Like, for me, my first reaction was like, oh, like, go into it, move into that space. And then I was like, no, I see that they need space. That's okay. That's good. There'll be another time to, for whatever the restoration thing that I desired. So I think it is showing up. And again, thank you, Birdie. She's taught me so much about this because, she has been so true and clear. And yeah, so it is really nice to be able to feel like I can be a more compassionate but respectful person, an understanding of other people. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be like sympathy or anything. I mean, like compassion, and for sure, and sometimes there's a place for sympathy, but sometimes it can just be respect. Like, I get that. I want to give you that respect and to honor that. And it's been huge.
Well, so much of that is doing our own work to be safe places. It's very difficult to hold a safe place for another being, whether they be animal or human, if we really aren't a safe place within ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think mind change really helps that, helps it get it down to the root of, do we feel safe within ourselves? Is our subconscious mind a safe place to inhabit? Is our body a safe place to inhabit? Yeah. And that makes changes whether we're trying to or not. And I love that.
Yes.
And we got to see a beautiful thing with Birdie this week in an arena where she was kind of free, where another horse was doing work. And I know in the past, she's had a hard time even laying down and rolling. And she just could see her. I could see her thinking about it over and over again. And then finally she came over, checked in with all the people, went back out, and then rolled. And I was like, oh,
yes.
And that's the beauty of it too, is we get to, when we're operating from a safer place, we get to also witness and even receive the energy from other people's victories or other horses' victories, because we're open to that. Yeah. And it was a really beautiful moment this week.
Yeah. Every time I see Birdie lay down, I'm like, good job, Birdie, you did it. Yeah.
So sweet.
Yeah.
Well, Nicole, this has been, I know we're coming off of, and for anyone who doesn't understand, we've been at a clinic, which is really a Pippa's instruction, and people come and learn from her. It's also had a little bit of a retreat flair. Yes. There's been somatics and a lot of other different types of coaching and stuff going on at the same time. And you're at the end of it. So this is yesterday was really the last day, and today is your reflection day. Yeah. So, and maybe even through the lens of mind change, and what it's brought and helped be a part of this, how are you feeling after this whole thing?
It's really surreal, but I feel so much more confident and resolute in the dream, and the ability to fulfill it. And that was, I wrote a clinic manifesto, and I went over it last night, and I showed it to a couple people, and they're like, wait, you wrote this before? And I was like, uh-huh. And I was like, I haven't even looked at it since a couple days before, because we've just been so full. And I pretty much it was a whole page. And I would say there's probably one or two sentences or lines that maybe weren't completely fulfilled, but it was a thing where I was like, that actually didn't need to happen. It wasn't like a darn. It was like that wasn't actually important. That wasn't actually a thing. So out of all of that, it was spot on. And of course I read it in the tense that it happened. And so it's looking like right after I gave this reflection of everything that happened at the clinic. And it was just wow, amazing. So one of those things is, that it would be life-changing, that I'd see this vision and clarity, and that I would be fully in my body and present, and that I would be able to have my body be free and flow in the way that I need to communicate clearly with my horse what I was wanting to communicate, because I'm always communicating clearly, but it's not always they're always picking up exactly what I'm communicating, but I don't always know that that I'm communicating something I'm not intentionally. Right. And I ran into that a lot at the clinic. And so that was always challenging, because you run into something, but then amazing, because then you get to the other side. And so I'm just still reflecting on all of that and the amazingness of it, but that I am on the other side, at least, of this mountain. And it's beautiful. And without all of the people on my team, every single one, it was all important for that healing and for that journey. In our sessions, we really got to work on things as they came up. So on our last one, I know I was this thigh's a problem. And it's because in the saddle, I would be trying to do different body movements and it would just fire. It would be on fire. That muscle would say, be super tense. And I did some somatic work that helped. But I knew there was still something that was deeper. It was more than body movement that needed to be addressed. And so being able to recognize that in my writing and then be able to have that application to be able to say, okay, what exactly is this? Why is it there? How do we move forward? What does it look like? That was huge. And I just feel like it translates so well to the saddle, to life, to relationships, to the horses, to everything. Because again, the things that are true are true. And if they're true in one place, they're true in every place.
And our body is a lot like the horses. Our body's very honest.
Yes.
And it's communicating for a reason. And I know that you know that with horses too. I heard you say it, I think it was yesterday, that the horse is never really doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
They're just communicating. Yeah. And that is such an important thing that we do with mind change and the body. It's never wrong. It doesn't need to be fixed.
Yes.
It needs to be heard and listened to, and it's communicating something really important. And you saw that with your body throughout the week.
Yeah.
Multiple things. And again, you had the support there, but we were able to say, okay, thigh, what very good reason are you blocking and tightening and everything? And it took us back to past things and belief systems and relationships and everything like that. And so how beautiful to have our body communicating in ways that if we'll take the time and learn that we can start to hear and start to befriend and not have it against us, but really have it be for us.
Yes.
And I almost see that when I watched you, everything click in, you were on the horse, you were asking for some certain movements, and there was a lot of resistance, and it looked like there was resistance in the horse. And when you, all the learning, all the work from the sessions, everything like that clicked, and your body released, the horse just did. Yeah, just so quickly.
And it was so cool because it was like, you got it. She was like, you got it. That's it. It wasn't like, and I just felt that so clearly, and I know this of them, and they're just so amazing, but it was like she wasn't going to compromise until she knew I had it. And so she was going to mimic exactly what I was doing, even though I'm pretty sure she knew what the vision was.
She did.
But she's like, nope, yep, this is what you're telling me. And then it was like, everything came aligned, and she's like, that's it. And I just love it. It's so
and
beautiful.
I think about that, like the body, how beautiful that is, and how it holds that. We get so like, there's this disease and this problem, and my body's doing this, and it is not wrong. No. And it's speaking up through love, and in the only way it knows how to speak, which is horses too. This is the only way they know how to speak. Yes. Is by their bodies and the way that the energy that they send us, and it's so true. Yeah. And so I loved that moment for you, for the horse, for all of us who were witness to that. And it just made me be like, yes. And that there's so many metaphoric representations that we've been given on the outside of us. Yeah. And I thought in that minute, like, that's our body. Yeah. And it's the reminder to keep loving our body, keep listening to our body. Yes. Keep giving it tools for communication. Yeah. Because horses don't speak. And in the way that we speak and communicate. So we've really had to learn to find out, okay, work with the communication of the horse. This is how they speak. When they do this, it means this. And it's just been the same with bodies. Yes. Over time is, okay, when the thigh is doing this, is there something wrong with the musculature or often not. Yes. Oftentimes there is a message. And when you got it with Rocky, Rocky just gave. Yes. And just like when you get it with your body, you hear the message and it's clear, and then you do something about it, then the body just gives.
My body is made in that way. And so no matter what my belief system is or my thoughts about it or anything, it's going to go that direction. It's going to go towards restoration. It is for me, for restoration, that whole healing, not against me. And so it's like, it's never going to compromise, just like the horse is not going to compromise on that, because that's how we were created. You know, the gophers in our yard, they're not going to compromise. They were made to prune those roots and to aerate the soil. They're not compromising on their purpose. I think humans are the only ones that try and compromise, and we try and avoid our God-given like purpose in creation. And so just to like really reconcile that and be able to connect those pieces in my mind, that's been life-changing. And so having the tools that like Mind Change has given me to be able to recognize those signals in my body saying, I want you to be restored to how you were created, and I'm not going to turn off until you get there. Thank you, body. Thank you for wanting me to be restored.
Yes.
And thank you, horse, for wanting me to get it right.
Right.
You know, I think Pippa even mentioned that, because I had mentioned that Rocky was like not going to compromise till I got it. And she's like, yeah, she's a good teacher. I said, yeah, she is. You know.
Yeah. Well, that's great.
Oof.
Well, thanks again for allowing us to be here and witness it face to face. It's always so wonderful when we get to meet clients that maybe we've only, been able to see online in person, and your beautiful farm and your beautiful family and all your wonderful teachers up there in the pasture.
Yes.
Yeah, it's been a really inspiring and enlightening time for us.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for coming and stepping into kind of the unknown and a little bit of the crazy train, we call it. And it's just been such a huge piece in this puzzle. And I'm like forever grateful to you guys for really giving me those connecting pieces for this bigger picture in my life. You know, everybody has those bigger pictures in their lives, and they're all different for everybody. And I really hope that everybody finds their own pieces that they need to complete their puzzle. And so thank you for helping fill in some of those spots for mine.
Oh, thank you. If someone out there was listening who maybe wants to believe that their body is for them, but really feels like it's not, or that they feel like they've been doing everything they can to figure it out. They maybe have done we've done everything. They change their diet, they, take this pill, or they do this thing, or they go to this place, and they keep thinking that they're trying, but they really feel like their body's against them. What would you say?
Slow down. Slow down and listen and look and watch. Maybe take a break for going to outside sources to help you. It's hard. And because outside sources do help, right? Who, not how.
Right.
It's a huge part, but sometimes we first have to find something in ourselves to then know who the right who's are. So look at the plants, look at the weeds, look at the animals, look at your dog, look at, just slow down and take time to learn yourself so that you can stand on your own truth. Nobody else told you it was truth. You found it. I would say that's where I started, and it hasn't failed me yet. So I would say start there.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
And thank you all for joining us again on another episode of the Mind Change podcast. Again, thank you for all of those wonderful 5-star reviews. And please comment and let us know if there's something you would like for us to talk about or cover in one of these episodes. And thank you for being with us as we endeavor to change the world one mind at a time.